Hey, everybody, welcome back to the ChatGTM podcast. It's your host, Michael Beck, here, as almost always, with my partner in crime, willing
9 times out of 10 anyway.
co-conspirator.
Chad,
Yeah.
everybody.
Hey, what's up, Chad? And then we got a guy in the green room, not the green room, Mr. Daniel Martinez. And before we get going, Daniel, I'm going to give a really great, smart, insightful read in. I've been doing these lately. I love doing these. So usually what I do is I'll go to ChatGPT and I'll plug in a LinkedIn profile and I'll get what I happen to know about the person. And it says, hey, here's the read in you should do. And I said, okay, let's make that 30 seconds. And here's the 30 seconds that's all about you, Daniel Martinez of QNS. Today on the Chat GTM podcast, we're joined by Daniel Martinez, a physician. No, he's not. And a leader at the Mayo Clinic in Phoenix. No, he isn't. With nearly 2 decades on the front lines of patient care. Not at all. So this is the cautionary statement. Do not trust your Chat GPT as if it were rote, as if it were gospel or canon. It does hallucinate. But what I'm not hallucinating is a really awesome guy who let me do that. It's his intro. Daniel Martinez, founder and CEO of QNS. How are you today, Daniel?
I'm doing awesome, Michael. Thanks for having me. Thanks, Chad.
Great to see you.
Absolutely. It's been a while. When did I last see you in person? Was it actually Chad saw you probably last at what?
I was, most recently
NRF?
blessed, yes, in
No,
Vegas for
our,
RFPT
our
last year.
Yeah. Was that September? Oh man.
October?
November.
October.
November.
It was
It's a
November.
blur.
That's the November show.
Yeah, it goes
Yeah.
by fast. Yeah. So what
It's
have you
been a
been up
blur.
to? I mean, let's actually do this kind of as a New Year boot. Like, we talked before we hopped on about here about part of your journey. And so I guess just for the audience and then us just digging in as buddies before we get going, what have you been up to?
It's been a, well, let's see. Last February is kind of when I launched and went off into my solopreneur status here, and it's been a year of learning, right? It's been a journey, and I know
Yeah.
it's kind of cliche, but it truly has. And I'd say that during that time, I had a lot of assumptions going in, and some of those assumptions were shattered. And there were a lot of assumptions that they were, I'd say, galvanized really into truths about me and my what I thought my path forward was. And I think part of it has been the people that I thought I would be interfacing with the most with are not the people that I'm interfacing the most with.
Ooh, that's an
I
interesting one.
originally thought that going into this, we're going to have conversations about more like network infrastructure and technology and things, and working with traditional IT leaders, which
Mhm.
is what I've historically, like in my career, I've been in networking for God 27, 28 years now. And I think going into restaurants, I thought that was really going to be our focal point, but it really hasn't been. I mean, I've worked with plenty of IT leaders, but I find myself working more with operations people and
Okay.
more even on the executive level and having different conversations, because the truth is that the the value prop that I have resonates more with people on the executive level that are truly feeling the pain and are trying to be more efficient, trying to figure out how do they scale more broadly instead of just focusing on their specific role. They're looking at the business a little bit more broadly. And
So
I
Daniel,
think that
before we go too far down that road, just to make sure, because there might be people listening or watching that don't know you yet.
that's
What
great.
is that thing that you're doing for people that you'd want to talk to them about?
Okay. So I help multi-unit restaurant brands to make better decisions on their technology infrastructure. So that's everything from helping them to procure their technology from a network perspective, but also it's really when you think about restaurants and they do like new restaurant openings, what do they need from an infrastructure? Forget about just the restaurant technology.
Mhm.
Just from a foundational level, it's everything from low voltage cabling to AV to security to network to hardware to Wi-Fi, managed services, and then everything in the cloud infrastructure side. So it's really all the foundational things you need for technology to help the restaurants, operate effectively.
You're
So
basically a
that's
neurosurgeon.
kind of, I mean, I guess you could say that in an alternate universe, that's what it is. But what I do is I help them. Typically, when a restaurant starts, they don't think about like how do we scale this from 1 to 100 or to 1,000, right? They're thinking about how do we get the doors opened, how do we get our investment, how do we set up our procedures and sourcing all the typical things that you need for a restaurant. They think about how do I get a platform that'll be good enough for now, right? How is it something that's going to be easy and it's going to be cheap? And then what happens is as they start growing, they start hitting these I'll call them speed bumps, right, along the way, where they start dealing with cost escalations from their platforms that don't work, don't serve them well, and then just becomes kind of unruly. And then you end up with a bunch of different vendors and you have no idea what the hell you're doing. And, that's kind of what, there's obviously variances to that, but that's basically the gist of it, where I normally see some of the operators when they're graduating from small restaurants to mid-sized restaurants and above. And they say, what do I want to be when I grow up? I was like, well, I want to be a restaurant that is mindful about, my operations and how I utilize my technology to make myself more efficient, more effective.
Daniel, what is it that you're having to teach people, right? Because they're coming in and they're evolving as a brand, and it sounds like you're not typically catching people when they are thinking about all of that IT stuff, infrastructure, as strategic as perhaps they should be. What do you have to teach them?
A lot of times I find myself telling people that the baby's ugly, and the baby is not necessarily one that they thought about. It's just the baby that they ended up with. And in most cases, I'd say this is generally the case, they're either acutely aware that there's a problem, or they think that what they have is just fine because their cost seems reasonable and they think that they're really getting a good deal and things are going to be, they're generally okay, they're tolerable, right? But what I do is when I start digging into their contracts and their environment and the actual technology that's being deployed and how it's being deployed along with resources, I consistently find that people are getting ripped off and they're not getting exactly what they thought that we're getting. I'll give you an example. I've been working with an operator, a growth brand, and they've learned to tolerate the supplier they have, right? They think that it was pretty good. And when you look at the structure, or actually like the deliverables that they give them, I started realizing that the supplier was not being transparent about what they were actually delivering. They told them, I'm going to give you a car. They didn't tell them what kind of car they were going to give them, right? Or how old the car was. And so what I do is I dig into it and I start realizing, hey, once I started reviewing the specs, I learned that, hey, what you're getting is actually something that's extraordinarily low cost, but you're paying for something that should be enterprise grade and you're not getting that. And so in this specific instance, what I did is I did a lot of homework and I found out that the platform was really cheap. And so I went out and I started thinking about, what is this operator trying to accomplish, right? How quickly are they scaling? And I found that their current infrastructure was not going to serve them well, and they were heading towards a cliff. So what I was able to do is to source out solutions that were enterprise grade, that actually provide them with PCI compliance, not to get too technical, but that gave them a level of security that they really need for an operation that is handling the volume of transactions that they're running, right? Upgraded their infrastructure, took them from a Yugo to a Cadillac, right? Another car metaphor, and also save them 20% on your operations. You don't generally give somebody, like, it's pretty impossible. I'm really proud of that, because it's not common for you to be able to upgrade someone's platform to that level. You don't say, hey, I'm going to give you the Cadillac and I'm also going to save you 20% on your OpEx. And that's unheard of, at least in my experience, historically. It's like you get one or the other, but sometimes the supplier relationship is so egregious that you can accomplish those things. And that's, for me, is like, it's helping me personally, because it makes me really happy to help people. And when I see that kind of stuff and I'm able to make an impact on their ability to thrive as a business concern, because you have a lot of people in there, right? They're depending upon the success of that entity, not just the investors, but the employees of those entities. And if I can have a little part in helping them to be more effective and scale more effectively, it makes me happy.
So thinking about all that, right? There's a real personal side to you, and I don't know if you want to explore this or not, but when we were in Atlanta at the QN at the see, all these shows are your show now. QS, I was gonna say the QNS
It's the
Evolution show.
QNS.
We're sorry, Danny, we're hijacking your show. It is now the QNS Evolution Conference. So we just did that. But at the QSR Evolution, there's so many layers to you. Like, I got to know you as the business person, and I really honestly shot past almost the person, because there's just so many great things you're working on for QNS. But then when I heard you talking to some of our friends from the show, right? Chad, who was from the juice company?
Jennifer.
Yeah, Jennifer Dodd, right? And Jennifer walked up to me afterwards. We did that reception for Lenovo, I think it was that. And afterward, Jennifer walked up and she goes, "He is a wonderful man. The things he's experienced and worked through to get him to where he is today. I don't know how he did it. I don't think I've ever come back to the well to ask you what she meant. And maybe that was a conversation between you and Jennifer. But, I think one of the things that we like doing on the show, and I don't think we do enough of, which is to talk about the people behind these businesses. I mean, yeah, we're gonna take technology and we're connecting, integrating, and absolutely 100,000,000%, right? That's why we're here every day, but it's almost table stakes. And I think where we miss the boat is who we're doing business with, you know? Um, is
Yeah.
it okay if you share a little bit about just like kind of your personal journey, how we got here?
Well, I'll tell you that, it's been 1 year now, and I've been out, really launched QNS and been out on this journey. But I feel like I have two different chapters of my life. The time before, right,
Yeah.
which is 49 years of my life before, and then this year, going forward. And that in the past, I would say, I kind of lived my life with, what's the word I'm looking for? I've always been a real private person, right? I guess it's probably the best way of putting it, where,
Okay.
I don't want to be a real vulnerable person and sharing all the different things that are going on in my life. But, I think that over this last year, I've been much more open, simply because I'm on my own now. And it's
Yeah.
interesting because you get the one of the most beautiful things of being an entrepreneur is that you get to choose your community. You don't
Oh,
inherit
yeah.
people. You get to
Yeah.
choose the people you work with. You get to choose the people you associate with, you network with, everything, and that is fucking awesome,
I love it.
And when you go back and you think the things that you have to tolerate in life, and being able to choose
Yeah.
that above all else is probably the best thing.
Hmm.
But that conversation I had with Jennifer was something, that I wasn't planning on having and then sharing with her. And I won't go deep into things.
Well, you know what? If Jennifer's listening, she has this habit of having that conversation. I had that conversation with Jennifer too.
Mhm.
She is, it's like, I can't remember what show, it's a famous radio show. Like, I'm not going to cry on here. I promise I'm not going to cry on the show. And they cried on the show every time.
Yeah.
Right. Jennifer's one of those people that it's easy to open up your heart to because she's there and she is a great listener and
Yeah.
just another professional that you get. There's people that you trust when you run into them. Like when I ran into you, I was like it just happens.
It's
So,
easy.
anyways, continue. Sorry.
And it's true, and I wasn't expecting to have Chad was there, and I had already been working with Chad, for a couple months, and he didn't know the story, and I just shared it. And Chad was just like, he was just stone faced, but I don't want to go into it. But I experienced a major tragedy in 24, and I would say that it was a sort of adversity that will normally break people, and being able to go through that and come out the other side with clarity about like who I am and where I want to be,
Yeah.
it's kind of it's been very helpful. And I'd say, like, as I mentioned earlier, like there's a lot of truths that I have that have kind of galvanized, through this experience and this whole last year. And the one thing I know is that I'm on the path I was meant to be on.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Thanks,
Um,
Michael.
Where'd you find your strength, your faith, your North Star to get you through that?
You know, I've I'm not a religious person. I am spiritual.
Yeah.
I believe in the universe
Yeah.
and energy. And I
Yeah.
think that the foundation is really part of what my wife and I, made an agreement on for many years ago. And it's about being a good human. And for our kids, raising them was about making sure that we raise good human beings. And so for me now, it's like you got to live that, right? Make
Yeah.
sure that what's important to you manifests itself in your everyday behaviors, the way you show up for others, the way you lift up those around you,
Yeah.
right?
They
The way
watch everything too.
the way you engage,
Yeah.
right? And my kids are out of home now. We're empty nesters this year, so I am extraordinarily proud of my kids.
and that'll maybe connect to something I wanted to call out, which is the as an entrepreneur, usually when people think entrepreneur, especially with technology, they think, oh yeah, that's where all the fun is had, the sexy technology, like AI, this, that, whatever it is, right? But what you do in technology, I think to the vast majority of people, is borderline boring in the sense that it's not the sexy stuff. And I'm curious, and let's say that growth brand, I think I know who you're talking about. They get a lot of headlines, a lot of press. And when they reach, 100, 200, 500 locations, no one's going to say, great job, Daniel. Look what you did. I mean, maybe somebody, but like the industry won't. You're doing a lot of behind the scenes, boring stuff that doesn't get a lot of attention. How do you think about that and reconcile that with who you are and who you want to be?
I think that this is an area that I can make an impact, and I don't find it boring at all. I think it's winning when I can find cheat codes for people and help them be more effective and kind of fix what I consider to be injustices that are being committed in the business. And it's true. I mean, I know that sounds kind of, what's the word I'm looking for, but it sounds a little like exaggerated, like injustice, but it truly is. There's some things that people should be ashamed of themselves and what they're doing in this business. And it's typically those that prey upon those who don't know, right? Because restaurant operators, their business is making food, taking good care of their customers, right? And bringing back value for their shareholders. That's really what they're doing. And they're not focused on security and how to make sure that you have a good operating model for the delivery of services for new store openings, all those things, making sure things. And for me, being able to create a process, a template approach that they can cookie cutter for wherever they're going and do it effectively so that everything's delivered on time when they expect it to, on budget, and I'm able to help them save money and give them something that will scale just with their brand, be seamless. Here's a thought here. I think this is maybe something that's not so sexy as well, but it's sexy to me, is look at all the technology in restaurants, right?
Right.
Every single technology company has developed or is developing or is trying to develop some sort of a platform to help guard them against failures in their network. They're expecting their network to suck. And they spend, all the restaurants end up spending all this money because they wave these, interesting new technologies out there to help them keep them up and running instead of actually fixing the problem. And the problem that can be resolved for far fewer dollars than paying for that extra redundancy on the restaurant technology side. And for some reason, that people in restaurant space or restaurant technology don't really get that. And so what I'm finding is that a lot of times the suppliers in the restaurants are the ones that are actually most excited about what I'm doing because they have an acute awareness on their side of what's actually happening on the restaurants and where the help is required, because there's a lot of times you're focusing on what's most important to you, right? Or what's right in front of you. And they don't stop and say, hey, wait a second, let's take a look at this, because maybe this is really the underlying problem. And it's easier to just say, there's the quick fix for me. Let's buy a cube from Q, right? Or whoever it is, some other backup redundancy, some edge platform, and saying, hey, why don't we just build redundancy into the actual network? And let's give you a better platform that's more stable so that your POS will be able to accept third-party delivery without a hitch, right? That kind of simple stuff that's not so sexy, it's sexy as hell to me.
Question is kind of a branch off on that, just because I'm curious. I mean, since you started QNS, or actually since you've been doing what you do for companies, last 3 years are obviously skyrocket of AI. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on AI, but how much infrastructure impact is that having that people need to be thinking about? Have you seen any data coming back saying, hey, the amount of pipes that are going through the building, the whatever it's token output, calls, queries, et cetera, going back to the cloud, analytics, video. It's got it. The pipes have to be getting like, I mean, T1 can't cut it anymore traditionally, or
Oh,
what?
Michael, you're out. You're like 25
See
years back.
how old I am?
25 years back.
OC3, those used to be fast. No,
Yeah, long time ago. That's you have
I
a
was trying to say something, antiquated, but not quite, a 64 baud modem or something.
yeah. OC3 is you have more bandwidth in your home right now, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, we used to race for those back in the day. But hacker
What I'm
speak. Yeah.
finding is that the bandwidth is increasing, or the requirements for bandwidth are increasing. It depends, right? It depends upon the adoption.
Yeah.
Look at every restaurant, right? How many as a services are they running, right? 20, 40, right? Depends on the size of the operator. And each one of those is another demand on their network infrastructure.
Yeah.
It's not the bandwidth that necessarily is increasing, and the simplistic way of looking at it, I would say, like in terms of like just tiny bigger pipes. It's more
Sure.
about the resiliency of that network is what's becoming more important. The more that you depend on those platforms that are out in the cloud, the more that you are beholden to them as
Mission
well.
critical, right?
It's mission critical, and it
Yeah.
truly is that. I mean,
So more redundancy is what you're saying. Then is that are we using those interchangeably? Redundancy as well?
redundancy and resiliency. So like I would say it's not just about having the redundancy, but having the technology that can make best use of that redundancy.
Okay.
And that's a whole other conversation, that we can have another day, but not
Yeah.
for today. But it's really about the platform and it's about having the redundancy. It's both, because oftentimes the platforms cause the problem. There's a lot of platforms out there that don't scale very well, right? That don't have that master command and control and uniformity in the way that they manage their networks. And that's my job, to help kind of uncover those issues that people have, and help them become more effective, and things that are more easily manageable, right? So yeah,
So then
absolutely.
a part two to that, because I was planning on asking, you just brought up at the right time, which is you had shared at the beginning of the conversation that the conversations you were having weren't with the same people you thought you'd be having them, right? And so that was a myth or misconception of where you were going in. Now, when you talk to operators or these people running the businesses, where are they disconnected from reality, or the conversation they thought they were going to have versus the conversation they need to have? Does that make sense? All right. Like, if, see, you're saying, like, if, for example, I need AI. Well, I don't know why, right? I need better infrastructure. I don't know why. So
Yeah.
what is the person going, I need something. You go, well, hold on. Let's walk this back a few and see what you really need. Right. Where's that misconception you usually run into?
I think that a lot of times when people are trying to adopt new technology, it's often a solution looking for a problem, right? I think that happens a lot,
Oh
and
yeah.
people, and especially in AI, everybody wants to keep up with the Joneses, right? And they're hearing that somebody is doing something, right? And they're saying we should take a look at that as well. And I wrote something about this not too long ago, is that making sure that you're kind of tying the outcomes and the measurable results, right? Things that,
Right.
is this something that's worth doing, right? And if you can't pinpoint an outcome, a specific measurable outcome that you're looking for, you shouldn't do it. You shouldn't go down that path. I've talked a lot about tech debt, the accumulation of old technology that doesn't serve you anymore, but you're still stuck with contracts, you're stuck with infrastructure, or you have abandoned platforms that are sitting in people's tech stack and they don't even know what the hell it's for anymore, because it was two IT leaders ago that implemented it, right?
Yeah.
That's where AI is the next layer on top of that, because people are going to be doing their trials and start doing some things that are going to create security issues with their network, because there's vulnerabilities in there because they forget what it's for and what was
Yep.
open, and that's the thing that people need to look. It's like, what are we doing? What is the outcome, right? How are we going to deploy this, right? And then obviously on the other end is who are we going to trust to help us with this?
Mm.
So sorry.
Daniel,
That's
it
good.
strikes me that a lot of people who will listen to this or that you're ultimately serving are in the hospitality business. And usually the people that start those businesses, you wouldn't understand half the words you're using. And what drives them isn't to figure out technology, it's to provide an experience for the guests.
That's
How do
right.
you connect the dots between people like that, right, that are trying to provide hospitality, to understanding what they need to know about your world that you come in and help with so that they can have that reliability, redundancy, and ability to scale? What does that conversation look like?
I think it's putting it in simple terms sometimes, where how do people relate, right? And they think ultimately we're in the hospitality business, right? So it's about taking care of your customers and making sure that they can fulfill their orders. When when a operator has a platform that doesn't function properly, it hasn't been mindfully deployed.
Mm.
Like, I saw a post the other day, like, look at my my online ordering that I had. And forgot who it was that posted that, but it was like, look at this order, it can't go through. And it's because they've selected a crappy POS platform, or maybe they've lost their connectivity. And I think that, um, with a lot of the operators, the way to connect it is just to that simple outcome. It's like, what do you want to achieve, and what do you want? What are your aspirations for your customers? Because when those things don't work, it impacts the customer experience. And when you historically, the adoption of technology wasn't really so important to restaurants. When you go back, 10, 20 years ago, that wasn't really it. It was about how do you serve people in the restaurant. But now, as especially over the last 5 years, customer experience is probably 30% technology now, if not more. It is directly impacted by the technology that's implemented by the restaurant. And think about all the things that people are using technology for in the restaurants now. Not just loyalty programs, not just, menu management, labor, all these things, all these optimization tools that are out there. they all have an impact on the customer experience. It's stepping back and saying, Mr. Customer, it's like, what do you want that experience to be like? Think about the journey. What is the day in the life of a customer? So when they
Mm,
walk into your restaurant or brand, or they try to order online or whatever it may be, what does that experience look like? And so I just walk them through that, and that's part of the process, right? Before I get into technology, I always learn about people's operations. Are you
Right.
growing? Are you shrinking? Are you changing? What are your limitations, be it manpower, capital, operational budgets? All those things are really important before you even look at technology. It's like,
mm.
who do we have on the team, right? Before you call a play, it's like, what's the team look like? That's really important.
On the security side of the spectrum, where do you come in at?
What are you referring to?
When we're talking about when you're orchestrating and setting up a multi-point, infrastructure of all the things that you provide, like, where does security start and stop with you? Is it the firewall piece, or where does that come in? Or how do you help?
There's a lot of elements. So there is a lot of times premise-based security, where it's just not network in nature or not inherently network. It's camera systems, and then
Okay.
how do people glean um, better insights from their surveillance instead of just recording? Like the amount of technology and the application of AI and computer vision is amazing. It could tell you, hey, did this person clean the floor this morning? Who didn't wear their hat today, or whatever it may be of your brand, what's important to you. Those are all insights you can glean there to help make a more safe environment, right, for your employees just as much as your customers. But then
Mhm.
also on the other part of security, that which is really like more inherent to what I historically have done, it's network basic, and
Right.
there's so many things that come into play there.
Well,
One
such
one
a concern across all levels, right? Like PCI and everywhere things can get touched, and, it's just that's massive, and it's usually a worry center for these folks, especially if they've had a breach, you know?
Absolutely. And so when you look at the different platforms, like not all security is built the same. There's
Mhm.
what's like there's some platforms that are in wide use in restaurants today that I consider to be prosumer, right? Or consumer grade, that they're just
Okay.
applying to restaurants. And I can get into a whole lot. That's probably going to be a LinkedIn post for me very soon, because
Here comes her rant.
I'm losing it when I'm seeing, some of these situations that people are doing. And more importantly, the shameful approach that a lot of MSPs are having, where they're selling a prosumer product for commercial applications. That's part
Mm.
of it. Those are some elements. But one thing I'll tell you is, there's like a really great aha moment that I've had this year. How many times do you see restaurants that have their executive team, right? Their operations team, that are not in the restaurant, right? They're working from home, they're at the shows, they're on a plane, they're in, wherever it may be. And because they've only focused on the restaurant, they don't stop and think about their network security on their laptops and what's called endpoint security. So
Yeah.
I'm a CEO of a company, or I'm the chief revenue officer for a company, and I've got my laptop and I'm sitting at home, and I have zero security on my laptop. And I think that maybe my Microsoft Defender is gonna save me. It's not, unless you have the
Not
right
so
licensing.
much.
And so
Yeah.
what do you have on that laptop? Not only do you have the keys to the kingdom, all the keys that will allow you to access your banking information, your investor information, their credit information, all those really important things. It's sitting on a laptop, just sitting duck. I've got a
Wow.
firewall at home. I got 30 different countries hitting me every single day trying to find vulnerabilities on my home network. And because I have so much security, like, I know what's happening, and it's scary and it's terrifying.
Really?
You see this stuff, and these operators, and this is rampant. Nobody's using endpoint security. Not nobody, but most people, if they're not of a certain mass, they're not deploying that. And it's a huge vulnerability. And like, I was looking at a report not too long ago that showed all the bad actors in the world, right? Like, you think about, like, there are known hackers in the world, right? And they're in the, maybe let's just call it 100 people. I'm just going to make this up. There's 100 people, and they were categories. Like,
Right.
here's a offender number one, and it's Boris from Russia, right? And here's what he likes to do. He's a dancing bear, and here's his focus. He likes to go after hospitals. He likes to go to after oil and energy, and here's what he does to hijack their businesses. And there's some of these guys, or people, guys or gals, that focus on retail, of which restaurant is part of retail. And
Yeah.
retail, especially small and mid-sized retail operators or restaurant operators, are major targets. Like they're going after them. And when you're an operator, if you get shut down because you have ransomware going on in your business, you get shut down. Like it is a do or die moment where they say, do I want to pay $10,000 or $100,000 or $1 million to get my systems back up and running,
Yeah, ransomware, those are
or
fun.
go out of business? What do I want to do?
Wow.
Right.
Yeah, well, if
So
you think about it, I mean, that happened to Sony, let alone a small company, right? Sony got locked out of all their assets that they had historically and had to ditch a lot of it. That's
it happens, man.
yeah,
It happens. There's some people out there, I guess, in our business specifically, where I'd say that they're extraordinarily lucky, and it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when they
when
experience pain.
So
Sadly,
wow.
Daniel, this is a time in 2026. Like, there's so much stuff going on in the world, a lot of change, a lot of volatility and uncertainties. But in all of that, what are you sure of as it relates to your business and what you're doing this year? And what is wait and see?
Well, I'll say that as it relates to my business, I'm further leaning into the fact that I do really good work. It's extraordinarily important to me to do high quality work. I take my engagements very seriously, and I know that I deliver results and I have a process that works. And so, like, for me, when I mentioned earlier, like some truths that I'm galvanized as, like, I'm 100% confident, like my process works and I can help pretty much everybody. And what's awesome, and I've been consulted, by multiple, really smart people, and says you should charge more for what you're doing up front. And it just goes against my personal value system and what I'm trying to accomplish. And I really just want to help people. And I'm helping people to change what they're doing in a more effective way, and I'm helping them save money. And I'm doing it, it's not like completely selfless, but I'm really leaning into being able to help others, and it's important to me. And I know that if I'm able to make that impact, I don't know why anybody wouldn't like open the door and say, please come in,
Yeah,
immediately. But this is the way restaurants are, right? It's a challenging vertical, right?
yeah,
Because I put myself in the shoes of the operator, right? And you say, like, what have you dealt with in the past? Like, how many different vendors, right, or suppliers have you dealt with in the past that just screwed you, didn't care about your business, didn't have that same, level of moral, foundation in what they're trying to do, and they're just like, let me sell you my stuff, and they get a little jaded, right? And so they're like,
yeah.
and so they step back, and I've actually heard some operators, some leaders on the restaurant side say, like, if I don't know you already, or I haven't worked with you in the past, don't ever call me. I've literally heard this before, and it's shocking, right? And I've heard that,
Wow,
and it happens, but
wow.
and so that's the reason for me that community is so much more important. And I'm finding that, you know, I've very mindful about engaging with new friends and new people in the business. And I'm finding that that community within hospitality is like, that right there is number one, it's fun. It's a great helping other people and, building up that community that rewards my soul personally. But the other side is like, it helps amplify our success. They become force multipliers. You help them, they help you. You open up some more doors, and next thing you know, it's like everybody's finding success in their business. That's incredibly rewarding.
Hey, Daniel, thank you for that. You've been doing the series on LinkedIn lately,
Mhm.
kind of informative. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I want to link that in our share of this so people take a look, but I want to give them a little teaser what they'll find there.
I had this epiphany that I need to figure out how to connect some more technical terms with executive leaders and businesses, and realize, just like I mentioned earlier about endpoint security, like
Yeah,
what a huge threat this is. And so I'm just doing some quick hits. I'm trying to do one a day on just network security for restaurant operators, and written in a way that is plain language and kind of shares with them. And there are some concepts that are a little
yeah,
bit more technical, but generally it's kind of trying to keep it in a level that connects with people and say, guys, like, we should stop and talk about this because this is a real deal. This is a real problem, or something, a threat that's out there. And you've mentioned earlier about AI. AI in itself is I wouldn't call it as much of a threat directly, but it's more about how it allows for bad actors to amplify the threat vectors that they have. And
absolutely.
that's the real threat. Like, now you're getting, instead of just getting hit one direction, it's like
Yeah, the
you're getting,
penetration testing game has changed completely at this point, I have to imagine.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Those are all out there.
So
Shadow?
I asked this before, and it was a fun question. And I really want to ask you too, Daniel, is how are you having the most fun in your role?
I'm having the most fun, I would say, mostly in just making new friends right now. And it's kind of been interesting because I'm finding in the restaurant space, the hospitality space, and maybe just in the people that work in it, I feel like I found my tribe. I found like this community of people that there's some extraordinarily intelligent people. Number one, I'll say that. And the second part about it is they're really intelligent, but they're also good humans. And
Mm.
granted, there's assholes everywhere, and I have this no asshole policy that I try to, that's like I'm going to put this on my wall now. And I'm going to put like your main values or things that are important to me. I'm going to put like no assholes on the top.
I got it in on time on that one at least.
This is where I'm going.
This is the most has been uttered on this show. I love it.
But it's funny though, I mean, because there's some really remarkable people out there, and they're very open and candid, and I'm just leaning into that, and I'm having so much fun. Like I think I'm meeting on average 1 to 2 new people every single day, and it's about not just about how you can help me, it's about how I can help you. And
Yeah.
I'm just having a really fun time about it. I kind of feel like you know, I didn't go into this with this thought process, but I think that in the restaurant space, let me give you some backstory. So I've been dabbling, I'll call it that, dabbling in the restaurant space for probably about 4 years now. And the first 3, I remember coming into my first show, it was a Mertech in Vegas, and going to the show thinking, oh, restaurants, it's going to be, whatever, they're going to go, they're going to need a couple different things. And I remember walking on the floor and just being shocked by the sheer volume of technology that was in restaurants. And I had no idea. And I think most people that go into a Chipotle are never going to realize, how complicated it is. They go into a Starbucks, they don't know that there's 23 IoT sensors in every store. Nobody has any clue because you don't think about those things.
Yeah.
And I go in there, and I'm not saying that all the technology is really good, but what I am saying is that there's a lot of technology.
Yes.
And it took some time to absorb it and learn about all the applications and why the technology existed, why these people created these companies, all these different platforms to address real world problems that restaurants are dealing with. And, that's been just that discovery, that journey. And I'm on this ongoing cycle of just learning more and more and more. Like when somebody tells me, oh, I've worked on 10 different POS platforms. And it's like, dude, can you give me an hour? Because I really want to hear about your input and learn about what was great about this, what wasn't. And I'm learning about like payment processing and, all the tricks of the trade and things that people are doing that are, dubious, I guess generally, but it's really interesting. Like it's a whole other world. There's a lot of shadiness out there, but there's also, and more importantly, there's a lot of really freaking good people in the business. And I'm leaning into that. And so to answer your question, Chad, because I'm having a great time just meeting good humans.
I think that's why we do it too. It's a great tribe to work in. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So we've come to the part of the show where we need to land the plane. But the runway on this is a series of rapid fire questions. There's 6 of them. Okay. And we're going quick. We don't have to go too far. Just what your gut says and just shoot out the can and see where we end up. Okay. Should be fun.
Okay.
All right. Here we go. What does starting QNS teach you about yourself that surprised you?
I can't answer that quickly.
I'm going to put in a cut here and I'll put it together.
There's definitely a cut for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that, Michael, because there's so many things. There's so many things.
Top of your mind. First thing that occurs to your mind. Stronger than you thought you were. Resiliency.
No, I think starting QNS, the thing that I've learned the most is that I needed this in my life, I think more than I ever expected.
Boom. All right. Hardest habit to unlearn after leaving corporate life. These are the easy ones.
You understand? Yeah. I was a hostage in corporate
You were
life
deep in thought today. Huh?
For decades.
That PTSD is hard to shake off. Got it. No.
I think the biggest thing is that it's okay to fail. It's okay to make mistakes. The key here is just to learn from them. Learn quickly and move on to the next thing. Like failure is never fatal, man. You got to keep on going. And just like success, it's never
beautiful.
Or like it's never finality, right? You got to keep on going, keep on growing.
Love it. All right. One tool, rule, or ritual you now refuse to operate without.
I think it's mostly my routine and
Okay.
how I've learned to manage my day. It's a little bit different than what I did in the past.
What's the
I no
first thing that
longer
happens?
have I no longer have TPS reports.
Okay.
They're completely out the window. I think I focus on what I believe to be the right thing to do at any given time during the day. And that's really it. Just focusing on that. But when you have with flexibility comes a lot of responsibility and trying to figure out like how would I keep on moving things forward. Like I shared with Chad before, like I love to write, and consciously I've avoided writing because I like it too much. And if
You're
I
not
start
staying
writing,
close to
it'll
the
dominate
money.
my time.
Yeah.
It's like Michael Beck with AI, right?
It's worse.
You let him
Yeah.
go and create some AI visuals, like shit, he's gonna be in it
Yeah.
till like 2 a.m. because that's
I didn't
just
know
his
we did
world.
this as a business. We do now. How about the best advice you should have listened to earlier?
Just start going. Somebody told me, it's like, just start moving.
Yep.
Don't think about it, just go. And that's with a lot of stuff. Do
Okay.
what you think is directionally correct and lean into it.
And they need a tune. Moment in the last year that made you think, okay, this is worth it.
It was at RFDC,
Okay.
sitting in a room, chatting with some IT leaders and learning about the deep underbelly of restaurant technology and how things happen. And it was so fun. I was like, it was a treat. It was something I had never experienced before in my career, where you had people, because generally, like, I remember I worked enterprise sales before, and so every company was totally different. They were in different verticals, whatever. But these are all people that have some sort of connective tissue between them, right? In the types of businesses that they've operated in, and being able to sit in there and realize, man, these are just real people trying to solve real problems and dealing with real problems that on from a structural perspective. And there's just so much help that's needed. And I know that my hypothesis of the help that's required, or the help opportunity, I would say, in the business, is just amplified. And I just know at that moment I'm in the right spot.
Beautiful. Last question. What do you want QNS to be known for 5 years from now?
Making an impact on people's operations, helping them to be more effective, helping them to weed out crap, right? And just being a good person and good team to work with overall.
I think that's
Like,
your new
everybody say,
tagline. QNS, we help weed out crap. No.
you can do it. I'm going to put on my cards, and I'll make one business card just for you. Look at my new card, Michael. Weed out crap.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that with us, Daniel. Honestly, thanks for the episode, and always thank you for your partnership. You are such a surprise on so many levels. I had a moment where I was feeling a little sick, and all of a sudden something showed up in the mail. I didn't know how you heard about it, but next thing I know, I had something for my kidney function. And you were just a good and genuine human being. I didn't ask you to do something. I was scratching my head trying to figure out where the hell this came from in the first place, and you care enough that you actually sought me out to send me something because you heard indirectly something was going on with me about something you had some familiarity with. And I'll remember that forever.
Thank you.
It says a lot about you.
It's easy to say nice things and do things when you mean them.
That's a deep cut right there. All right, that will definitely be on a 15-second clip. Well, we do definitely have to land the plane. I know you have stuff to get to, and we were at the top of the hour or a little bit past it. Or bottom in this case. But Daniel, you are awesome. If people want to find you, I know you're heavy on LinkedIn. Are you having shows coming up?
I have to get back to you. There's a couple that are going to be in the next month or so. I'm definitely going to Mertech, the restaurant franchising show, like it coming up as well. So those are probably the two I'd say that are in the immediate horizon.
Cool beans.
Busy March.
Yeah. Oh, here comes March. Yes. All right, everybody. Well, we're gonna chat. Any parting words before we sign off here for today?
This has been fantastic.
I think so.
Really a pleasure.
Yeah, definitely a pleasure. And so for those of you who don't know, Daniel Martinez, I highly encourage you to get to know him, find him on LinkedIn, find him on his website. Company's called QNS. They do great work. And this is the sign off for the ChatGTM podcast episode to be determined, but season 2. And you can find us in all places where podcasts are being aired on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon, iHeartRadio, and Deezer, now having been added to the lineup. So yeah, please subscribe. If you guys ever want to get in touch with any of our guests, please reach out. Let us know. We'd love to introduce you. And for now, my last and only ask on these things at the end is random acts of kindness. Please sprinkle that stuff everywhere. You don't know whose day you're going to make better. And so, with that being said, this is Chad GTM signing off. We'll see you guys in the next one.
Thanks, guys.
Later.